Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. And we're going to do a little bit different type of show. It's going to be a little bit more about us as opposed to the industry, but I think what we're going through will be a good harbinger of things to come, and it will be about AI. So fasten your seatbelts. Tisa, good to have you here again.
Good morning, Paul.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a topic that's been near and dear to our heart over the last few years. I think AI has just accelerated a lot of the development work we've done. Laura?
It's great to be back. I haven't been on this show in a minute, but I'm excited for our conversation today and talk about what we're up to.
Yeah, tell people what you do for NASA.
Yes. This is a great question. It depends on the day, right? So innovation brand director for NASA, but really working on, I would say twofold at this point. So connecting community through their InsurTech and RetireTech work under the brand of NASA Reimagine and the work that we're doing in the RetireTech space. And then also too, the conversation today is really looking at bringing technology solutions, kind of AI into the space within NASA. How do we use it to make things faster, better, stronger, and then kind of power our employees to do so as well. So it'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, great. And we actually have a entirely new guest, Heather Brown. Welcome.
Thanks, Paul. Very excited to be here. My first time ever on any podcast whatsoever. So it's very flattering that you guys invited me. And
we got you on video the other day, and I think you did a great job. So now you got a chance to go in audio. And so tell people what you do and give them a little bit of your background, beyond
Sure.
NASA.
Yeah, so I'm the director of marketing operations for NASA. So I get to work with all of you all day, every day, which is a joy for me. But for those that don't understand what I do or know what I do, really working on driving the strategic maturity and digital maturity of our marketing operations. So lots of automation, lots of artificial intelligence, and just making sure that the data goes where it needs to go so our customers can go where they need to go and they get the content that they need right on time.
Yeah. Well, let me set the stage, and I'll talk about what we're going to talk about. And for listeners out there, I'd love to get comments or feedback if you've got answers to some of the challenges that we're working through right now, or if you have questions, we'd love to share this, because I think we're headed into a new era of technology, and I think it'll have really big ramifications, positive, for our business. Of course, you don't want to ever start talking about the solution before you talk about the problem. What's the problem we've been trying to solve is, how do we make it easier for agents? Well, I'll just start with this one problem we've been, exploring for a long time here. Tisa and I go back many years here. Is how do we make it easier for agents to explain our products to customers? And it may be nothing to do with our products. It may be helping them find customers, help them start to engage, build trust with the customers, get them to actually ultimately offer a solution we hope is a fixed index annuity from NASA to solve it. And Tisa, before we and I will say, every agent I've ever talked to says, you say, what could you give me? They'd say, well, give me more customers, or give me material that I can use to find more customers with. And Tisa, let's sort of say before we even hit AI, maybe talk about some of our efforts to make digital marketing expertise easy and accessible for our agents.
Sure. So before AI, to your point of like problem before the solution, the problems that our agents face are consistent, ongoing things that we've been addressing for years. Mainly, to your point, finding clients to speak to for sales opportunities, but also once they find those clients or those prospects, how do they explain the product? You already talked about that. But post that or after that, what we've been solving for the last several years with the advancements we've made on our platforms is getting them the information when they need it and how and where they need it. So most of our agents, of course, are on the go. They're in cars, they're in planes, they're meeting with clients, right? So that's going to be information on a mobile device. Maybe it's a mobile app. We launched a mobile app for agents 2 years ago. But if nothing more, it's definitely being able to go to a website or some other digital platform to get information, status, what's next, what actions do they need to take next, what actions do their clients need to take next, and what does the carrier, NASA, need in order to support whatever the service request might be. So we've worked a lot on our statusing, making it available on multiple platforms, and exactly how agents want to consume it. So some agents might want that via email. Some agents might want that via a push notification in a mobile app. And some agents may want to just go to a website that's mobile friendly and they can quickly look at it on their phone or their iPad, copy and paste or understand what the information is and quickly interact with their clients. And then the last mode that we've had a lot of success with is just simple texting. We have some notifications that folks can enroll in to get status on the go. And again, understand what they need to do next or what their clients need to do next to get their business through the door.
Yeah, and we've really worked to make rates, materials super accessible on our agent portal, so people can find the stuff as easy as possible and
and as quick
make it sell as quick as they can. Why don't you talk about though? Maybe just step back to COVID, because we suddenly we made a big bet on digital marketing, digital advertising support, and then COVID hit. Suddenly we had a lot of agents who said, I've got to change what I'm doing. Maybe talk, Tisa, about our journey, over the last, start with COVID and kind of what we did and what we learned.
Yeah. So, what COVID pushed or created was an overnight behavioral change that was needed, right? So sometimes with technology and the shift is slower or longer. But overnight, we needed to figure out, our agents needed to figure out how to sell differently, and we needed to figure out how to support that. The good news, to your point, was we were ready for it because we had invested the few years prior in our digital marketing and how we were delivering content and the types of platforms we delivered to help complete the sale. So we were able to leverage a lot of what we'd already built, mainly a straight through e-application process that had a digital front end, a mobile web friendly front end that agents could use to facilitate a sale totally virtually. In some cases, if cash with app, outside of the consultation and the solution conversation, the client could actually complete the e-application without necessarily the agent involvement. The agent could pick up that app on the other side, get the signatures, and get the case out the door. So I would say almost a touch-free, seamless process. We know that clients obviously want to still talk to a human at some point, but we were well poised for COVID when it hit from that perspective, from a process perspective. The other piece that we were able to support really well was the idea of selling or interacting with clients digitally. So it could be as simple as like a how-to on how to conduct a client meeting over Zoom, or it was marketing content really tailored to what was on clients' minds in COVID, right? So all of a sudden, things like saving in an emergency, because that created an emergency for a lot of people. How to handle, a shift in expenses, whatever that might be, medical or otherwise. So we were ready for that and had a lot of success with cranking out that type of content that would allow agents to be, be useful and sort of react to the times. And continue to be top of mind with the resources that their clients need. To your point earlier in the conversation, building that trust. So today I'm giving you resources for your everyday life, having nothing to do with an annuity, but it means that in 2 or 3 weeks or 3 months from now, when that becomes a conversation around retirement planning, you're coming back to me for that next conversation and you're trusting me to have the resources that I need. So
yeah, well,
that was a little bit about what we did.
Yeah, I can't believe you're skipping over. The one thing that really stood out for me was offering. It's interesting. We did all this digital stuff you're doing, but then we actually knocked on agents' doors. I think we probably had 70. We said, look, we will actually be your outsourced marketing agency.
Mhm.
If you hit a certain sales level, I think we had probably 60 one-on-one calls with agents, and it was probably one of the better experiences I've had just to understand the range of business models that we support, and also the range of capabilities. And
Mhm.
what I heard consistently was, these agents, they wanted help. They couldn't necessarily afford to make that kind of investment when they didn't know the return, would be. They couldn't see a return in the next month. But the downside was it was really right. Tisa, remember, it was just so hard to scale because
Yes.
we did landing pages, we did white papers, we took all those experiences. Said, okay, somebody needs a landing page. Let's sort of have a landing page off to the side that we can give people. They want a white paper, they want a postcard campaign. Now we have postcards, and we'll make them available for people. But inevitably, they wanted customization. So any call we made was, I swear, if we looked at the time, right, Tisa, what do you think? It was, if we spent 30 minutes with an agent, it was at least 8 to 10 hours of follow-up work. If you looked at all the time, am I exaggerating?
Yeah. So, I mean, the prospecting support that we provided, I would agree. It was typically that 15 to 30 minute upfront discovery call, understanding their business. To your point, everyone has a slightly different business model and need, in particular, their marketing needs. And then on average, I would say 2 to 3 additional appointments, meetings, and 8 to 10 hours feels fair for the follow-up of actually generating and creating this highly customized and tailored content. And that was both offline and online, right? So one agent's in the Midwest and they're having a lot of success with newspaper ads. And the next agent's in Arizona and they're having a lot of success with a really a little bit more sophisticated social media campaign and ads leading into a landing page, generating a lot of web traffic for leads. And it was, and everything in between. So the level of customization and what we were able to support was phenomenal, but it was time consuming.
Yeah. And, question we always got from management, well, that's great. You've got one person. How do you do this for 10? And the answer was, I'm not sure. Well, we'll create these templates. We'll use, and I think, Tisa, the good news is we ended up with a library of agent-driven, agent-defined marketing material that was shareable for a lot of people. And so I think last year we got a lot of good feedback when people kind of said, "Oh, you got a lot of good stuff." And we said, "Yes," because we did what a lot of our independent producers asked for. Now, a scaling question, I wasn't able to figure. Laura, that was a struggle to say. How do you scale this kind of service at this kind of customizable, at this level of customization? And then, what happens?
Yeah, no, it's true. Right. So even just thinking about customizing at that scale, it's almost goes against what the whole term of customization means, right? Because people are going to want things in a different way. They're going to want them delivered. They're going to want the messages slightly different. And I know we'll get more into this in the conversation later on about some of the solutions that we're building here. But I think it's an interesting conversation when you start to think about what it means to each business. And you mentioned how people have different business models. Some people like to work on paper with pen, and that is the method that they use, and that's what's worked for them for decades. Then there's other individuals who want to go digital, right? And talk about the tools that Tisa mentioned in her commentary. So I think it's an interesting journey and role that we get to play as we support these individuals and their businesses, since everyone is so different, yet we need to scale it in a way that makes sense for us as well.
What reminds me is, I guess when I think back, maybe it was February of 2023 when I actually got an account with ChatGPT and started going, and I realized, okay, light bulb went off for me at that point to say, this is game changing for creating custom content at scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we'll do is jump forward and then jump backwards. So Heather, why don't you just talk about, just give people, the pitch of what have we actually put out into the marketplace now as a beta test?
Sure, yeah. Just as you both have mentioned, it was really inefficient for us to be able to meet with everyone individually and very time consuming. Yet it didn't diminish our need and want to be able to do that for them. So the solution immediately became like, how do we scale our own services and offer them that same level of personalization and customization to help them scale their businesses without us having to create an entire marketing agency as an arm to the company, right? So the solution quickly became generative AI, where we could scale our own abilities as individuals on the marketing team to solve those needs for our customers at the time, right? The agents that we were assisting. So then it quickly became, well, wouldn't this be great as a self-service resource? Where then, if they needed to reach out to us, they still could. But in the meantime, they have 24/7 access to our own capabilities as a team. It would be like having Paul on demand 24/7 or Laura on demand 24/7, Tisa on demand 24/7. So we went ahead and created a microsite where they could do just that, right? And the beta test that we're doing now is for our newest product. And it really was so that agents could go in and create their own customized content, whether it be at scale or one individual client at the time, but really to satisfy that need so they can go in and with that little background in marketing or little time on their hands, even if they only have 2 to 5 minutes, they could go in and write an email for one client or create a campaign for multiple clients. So that's what we're starting now. Do you want me to go a little bit deeper into kind of how we've launched it yet, or do we want to circle back?
Let's just hold back for a second. So we basically built we're trying to give people a virtual marketing assistant. Wow, what would the world be like if you had a free marketing assistant to help you plan campaigns, create campaigns? And this is sort of the first one, first piece. And now, my question has been, I think back to when ChatGPT popped up to say, how long will it take for this to really change how agents may be conducting business? And I think it's interesting. In some ways, it's been exception. These agents and producers have latched onto the stuff, and other time, but there's some reasons why I think the industry supported stuff has taken a little bit of time. That's what I thought we'd drill in. And Laura, I think you're probably in the very best position to describe. Let me sort of step back and say I think there are three parts. One is, what does it take to get this out into use? Well, step one, you got to get everybody inside a company on board. Step two, you have to actually build this thing. And once you've gone through that, it's users don't just knock on your door to try something new that you've never heard of. So there really are kind of three challenges I want us to just explore and share with people in terms of what we're learning. At the very end of the show, I want all your predictions, okay, as to when something like this becomes a normal course of a normal tool for agents providing retirement support. So, Laura, why don't you start with the first one? How it's easy to get everybody to say yes, let's invest time and resources in this, right?
Oh, totally. It makes me think of a quote by a gentleman who said, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." So I liken that to this conversation because in the way that, you go inside of a company and you're asking for a big change, right? In the same way that social media and the usage of social media or the internet and the usage of the internet was such a big change. I think in the same way, it's more about thinking about how individuals need to or can change who they are or how they work, the things that they do in order to make that change possible. And not only the enterprise level, but also the individual's day-to-day operations. So it's been an interesting journey for us. And it's one that I think that we can say that we're proud to be on because it's working within the organization, it's working within the different groups. So as you can imagine, when you have something of this nature that is, it's part tech, it's part creativity, it's part security, it's risk management, it's marketing, it's innovation, it's product, it's investment. So that it really touches the whole swath. So it's being able to kind of understand people's apprehensions, understand where they're coming from, understand the abilities that we have in front of us from a tech perspective. What do we currently have unlocked? What can we unlock to further this advancement? Where do those lines get drawn and by whom? And then agreeance is something that I think has been a mission that we've been on because it's getting everyone to the right level, right? This is, for a lot of people, this is new information. This is new technology. It's changing every day, every week. So I think of it as it's like a two-track train here where there's education upskilling oneself and areas to understand what is it that we're truly talking about. When someone says an LLM, what does that mean? When you look at the tools, how are they different than one another? Just like you would look at a car and say, well, a car is a car and it has wheels and it takes me from place A to B. But yes, that is true. However, the experience is different. If you're getting into a Maserati versus a Fiat, it's going to still take you there, but it's going to feel different. And you're going to buy the Fiat or the Maserati for different reasons, in the same way that you're going to use different tools for different solutions. So I think it's a mix in my mind of education, upskilling, continuous listening. I think something that we've done very well is engage the community around us to say, how are you doing this? What challenges are you up against? What victories have you had recently? And how can we be of service or help? Because if we're not going to listen to those around us, we're not going to truly hear the full story. And I think that's something to keep in mind. And in something like our industry, where it is so secure and it is highly regulated, I think that it's important that we listen to those around us who are facing those challenges. So when we sit down with our IT or risk teams, we can have the conversation around the nitty gritty without going into it, and really work with those individuals to show understanding on all levels. So I think what's been helpful for us is putting together a team internally, and everyone's probably thinking, oh, it's a governance team. Well, yes, it is, but it's also something that we've done as a secondary, where we've engaged different parts of the company with intention. So all of the groups that I mentioned earlier, from service to investments to product, innovation, marketing, those folks are sitting around the table and they're providing ideas that are going to impact their day-to-day and the work that they do, right? So it's important, I think, to not only request ideas from the large organization as a whole, but also to work with people who are going to be able to put their feet in the sand and really go with you and work side by side to understand, here's something that I think we can solve together using this type of technology. And let's iterate. Let's go back and forth several times until we've created something that's going to be useful and provide value to the business. So for me, it's been a combination of upskilling, it's education, it's constant communication, right? You have to understand who's at the table, how they may be feeling about this opportunity, especially if they're coming from more of a risk adverse position. And then how do you communicate in a way where you're providing them the resources that they need to really feel comfortable, feel confident, feel educated, feel like we're all solving something together, moving it forward. So we have a great group internally who's been working on this since the beginning. And we have, support, I think, at all levels, which is going to be key, especially in industries like ours that are heavily regulated. Because if you don't have that support, you have really nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, sticking with your car analogy, I'd say over the last maybe 10 years, we've gone through three waves. The gas guzzler, the Humvee. It was the everybody's driving a Humvee, which was the mainframe. That was 2010. Okay, and you got to go to the gas station every week, every few days to fill up the tank. Okay, then comes the hybrids. Let's say that's cloud environment. Listen, you still got a little bit of your mainframe. You're getting a little bit of cloud. Now, we're in the world of electric cars. Let's say it's which is the AI added to the equation. You still got to have doors, still have wheels. It just feels a little bit different when you're inside. Now, and Laura, you mentioned education. It's interesting. It's not. I don't think it's even. Yes, there absolutely is an educational issue. I'd say need here for people to understand, how does this electric car even work? And then at the end of the day, do you really care? What do you really need to know about that electric car to feel comfortable driving it? Maybe you don't need to know how many lithium batteries there are underneath. Maybe you need to worry about other the self-driving features.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, right? And I think in some ways it goes back to the communication, understanding who's at the table. Because if you're sitting across from, keeping the car analogy, the mechanic's going to want to know how many lithium batteries. And yes, I know mechanics, Teslas are not really the same boat anymore, but it's like the people doing the work on that car itself, they're going to want to know the pieces of the car. The people who maybe are within a different, maybe subsector, they might not care about, to your point, the number of 7 lithium batteries, but they may need to know exactly the angle of the handle. So it's really kind of understanding, in my point of view, what each stakeholder finds interest in and being able to communicate that, especially in the buy-in process, where if you were to go in and say, all right, everyone, these are the 3 pieces of information we're telling you. And that might only be relevant or important to one person, and we might shut everybody out. So I think it's as much of a discovery of the people and the buyers and the folks at the end of the day who really need to support this, to provide the information they need to do it. Because without the buy-in, I mean, your brakes are seized. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, we've got a lot of work to do. It's I think, Laura, we've asked everybody in our AI team to commit to taking one course in the next 3 months. And I don't know,
Well, I'm happy
let's
to
see.
say
Yes.
I've received about 25% of the individuals in the team have accomplished at least 1 to 5 courses.
Really good.
So I think it's going to be interesting, even from a standpoint of understanding who has interest and where does that interest lie, right? Have they found the value within their day-to-day, or is it something that they as just an individual find very interesting? So we're going to be discovering throughout this entire process, I think.
Yeah. So, okay, Tisa. So, okay, great. We get everybody on board. Oh, easy. Let's build one of these things. What are the challenges?
So I think the main challenge is just the speed of which this is all moving, meaning unlike past advancements in technology, you may have a 6 to 18 month, cycle of learning, building, and everything kind of stays status quo as you're doing that, as you're learning and getting your prototype or your first, product out the door. In our experience, and I'm sure it's, in a lot of cases, people have experienced this, that the technology can change in a matter of a few weeks to a few months. And so whatever we started building, let's say late last summer, by the time we hit January, some of what we were thinking would be the frameworks or the platforms or the models we were leveraging were either fully changed, obsolete, new things had come out that might be better and we needed to shift to. So that's been one of the challenges, is just the pace, keeping up with it and having a little bit of a moving target, different than past development cycles where you pick your framework, you pick your platforms, you pick your technology, your vendors, what up front. And that stays steady the whole time you're building. That has not been the case with us. And we want to, of course, make sure we're using, it's a little bit of like, I guess I'll switch analogies, right? So, from the car to the plane, right? It's building the plane while it's in flight, type of analogy that we've been working through successfully, but it has been a challenge.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like I think cars work. Teslas are interesting. Now they've been infamous. People say, "Oh, these are terrible cars." Every single month they've changed how the configuration is in the car. But that's what this is like. And we have, listen, for good reason. We have IT teams that are getting hit with thousands of cyber attacks on a daily basis. Now come walk to an IT department. They say, well, can you draw the system on a piece of paper? And not far off from that. And we say, well, we think it'll be like this, but it may not by the time we get done. And that's hard for people who are working in a controlled environment for very good reasons to let go. Now, I'll give you a real example here. We these context windows, right, in LMs. Basically, what are context windows? Context windows are how many words you can stuff into this LLM for it to read and interpret. And Heather had talked a little bit about our product, what we put on the market. One of the things I think is really cool is this thing's doing a really good job answering questions about really complicated products. Now, we thought we needed a RAG. In fact, we did need a RAG system, in January. But by the time we get to August, all these context windows have opened up. It used to be the equivalent of maybe 4,000 tokens or words going into these things. Now you can do, 2 million with some of these. So now we can it's actually easier to do it today than it was 6 months ago. I don't know, Tisa, do you think, how did I do?
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly that. So, we kind of build it on, I'll say, one assumption or at least one standard that exists in the moment. And within, weeks to months, there's something bigger, better, faster. To your other point, in particular in our industry and our, company and the appropriate reasons for having risk and other controls in place, is that the other challenge, right, outside of the velocity of technology, is how do you get the right environments with the controls? And what I mean by that is so much of this is iterating and testing and learning. So how do you get the sandbox that allows you to do that? And it almost directly conflicts with, in some cases, the controls that we're used to having around this type of technology in general. So I think we've gotten there, but it was a challenge getting there to get the environments we needed to do the learning, to try 5 or 6 or 12 models before selecting one, and not necessarily having it so locked down until we knew which one we wanted to select.
Right. Well, and some of the controls are just different. On a lot of applications, to the testing process is, don't want to admit this, but it's kind of like, I'm tired. We're tired at the very end. Let's put in 10 use cases and see what happens. And then off the application goes and we'll deal with it as they come. For these type of products, you have to test them. It's continual testing. Testing suddenly is really almost at the core of this development process. So, you really do have to rewire a development organization to do this.
Yeah. So back to the car analogy, I was thinking when you were talking, like all 3 of the cars you described, they all had a driver, right? They're still a driver. At least there's a person in the driver's seat. What they're doing is very different. And so I don't know that any of us have ever considered after age 16 that we need to go take our driving test again. But in this case, it is kind of creating that moment where you're either learning to do what you do differently, right? You're having to relearn it, or you're at least having to redefine your role in it. So you're still a driver, but exactly what you're doing in the driver's seat is different. And I think that goes across several different roles, right? It's not just the developer in this, it's the marketing professional. In this case, we could even, liken it to the agent's role and what they're doing and how they're using technology. So it's definitely a shift in how people need to work day to day.
Okay. So we get everybody together. They say, yes, we're going to let you go and run. We build it. Oh, yes. Heather, it's so easy to get users to try this and give us feedback. Tell us, what are we, what's been the experience? What are we hearing? What are we learning?
Oh, it's the easiest to get users. Back to Tisa. Just kidding. I think just like any other go-to-market strategy, you have to consider that there is a change happening underneath it. So even if you're launching any sort of new product into the market, whether it's for sale or it's a service, you have to understand that you have to get people to change their behaviors in order to start selling it or start using it. And that's been kind of the hardest thing for us so far, right? Because we've gotten folks interested, but we're starting to see polarizations happen within the people that we've tried to recruit to use it within this initial launch testing period. So we targeted many of our agents just to kind of gauge what that enthusiasm would be, just because it's been a couple of years now with generative AI on the market. People have likely either seen it on the news or use it themselves and are aware of what it is. So we wanted to leverage that and be able to measure what people's kind of appetite was already. And I think we saw that, you can bring a horse to water, but they're only going to drink if they're thirsty. And we're noticing a lot of people might not yet be thirsty. So again, back to what we're seeing on our own front, it's just 3 polar groups, right? We're seeing the folks that are likely already using it every day. They have a desire to use it. They already have the knowledge about AI, and they're kind of 3 steps into that change management process. And then we have the folks that are desiring to use it, but they might not know how to already. So they're really stuck until we can kind of walk them through it. And then once they have that knowledge, they're really excited about it. And they feel like they want to strengthen their ability to use the product and integrate AI into their everyday life. And then they're the folks stuck in that initial stage of change management, right? Like the awareness stage. They might have heard about it before, but they need the knowledge to get to that next step of being able to actually use it and integrate it into their everyday life. So we're seeing a lot of people in those 3 buckets. We have testers that absolutely love it. Once they get in there, they have the knowledge to use it, and then they want to integrate it every single day. And then we have the people that had that desire, they registered, maybe they didn't even use it, but once we've given them the knowledge of how to use it and apply it to their business model, they're really excited about it. And that desire is even stronger, and now they have the ability. And then again, that awareness stage of, I would say 99.9% of the people that we've been able to connect with, or maybe not connect with so far, have the awareness of it, but they're just uncertain and they need us to kind of ignite that desire in them, show them what it can do for them, and then give them the knowledge in order to actually start executing on that.
Yeah, and I would say even with a handful of agents who've been testing this thing, we've got some amazing feedback already. So I think having even a core group of 5 to 10 users can tell you a lot about and help define a product. I don't know, and Tisa, you've been on a few of these calls as well. I mean, I don't know, what are the biggest ahas here? Like where you say, I thought this, but this is what I learned.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to hear from a couple of agents in some of the interactions we've had, getting to Heather's point, right? Building the awareness, driving that adoption. I don't know if it's a surprise, but more of like a validation of what we were talking about earlier, which is just the range of how people work, right? The range of the business models and the range of the marketing support need that they're looking for. So already we've seen, a range of, I'm already using Gen AI. I have 5 ideas, and here's how your tool can help me do one of the 5. To needing to be walk through it step by step and almost explain how it can fit in, like driving that demand or driving that thirst that Heather was talking about. What's consistent, I would say, is the excitement is around what this tool, what we've put out into the market with our beta tests can do for supporting scaling of customized content. Like that's been the consistent. So it's really validated that what we were doing, 3 years ago, with our prospecting support and building out tailored marketing assets can be accelerated with this tool. And I've seen agents' eyes light up and start to think about all the ways that they can apply it to building their business in that way. So that's what.
Okay. So time for the lightning round. Each of you are going to pick a date. How long will it take us to get 100 active users on a platform like this? I don't know, Laura.
November 22nd.
That's specific.
It is, yes. I have faith.
ChatGPT gave her that date.
I have faith, right? Like it's so good what we've created and what it can do for people. Like why wouldn't they want to use it? So I think the more people that we get it in front of, the more they're going to see what they can truly do, and it's just gonna snowball. So November 22, that's my date.
All right, Tisa, pick a date.
All right, I'm going to pick a date and a selfless plug, which is going to be 100 active users by January. And the reason I'm pushing it out a little further is because I think we get those 100 active users when we take our prototype or our proof of concept and we expand it to more products. So we have it specifically for our newest product, an income-based product. But once we can expand to our full suite or at least a few more products, I think we see the adoption shoot up.
Heather, over or under?
Before Tisa said January, I was actually thinking December, split right in the middle. It would be almost a year to the day before we actually had the first piece of this puzzle created. So it'd almost be a little bit first full circle. But I think with all things technology, we have about a fifth of that right now. And I feel like once it works, it's an exponential growth. So we could be much faster than November. But once it does happen, it's going to be fast.
Love it. Okay, 100 users, that's our goal. If anybody's listening who'd like to be part of this, I don't know, Heather, what should they do to become part of it?
Well, if you aren't an appointed agent, visit us at salesnet.nfg.com. Kidding. But if you are, certainly reach out to any of the 4 of us. We would love to walk you through how to use the platform and what it can do for your business. And, we welcome any and all feedback at this stage.
All right. Heather, you're great. First podcast, check, done, excellent. Laura, what do you think? I give her 5 stars.
She's welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd rip the Band-Aid off on this one.
All right. Hey, Tisa. So anyway, we'll be back next week with a more regular format. But let us know what you think, and love to hear your stories and what you're doing with any of these tools and how we might actually be able to build something that would be really useful for you. So anyway, thanks for listening, and join us again next week for another great episode of That Annuity Show. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.